My name is Gilbert Parker. I was born 85 years ago in Germantown, a suburb of Philadelphia. And I went to a Quaker school, wonderful Quaker school. And then I went to college at Wesleyan University in Connecticut. And then I came to New York. And I got a master's degree at Fordham. And I've been in New York ever since. I've got a wonderful little apartment on Gay Street. Do you know Gay Street in the Village? It's the shortest through street in all of Manhattan. And they're all old houses. And I got a second floor, little floor through, which is about as big as this living room. And it was all, really old, but I fixed it up, the best I could. And there were 3 gay bars on 8th Street between 6th Avenue and 5th Avenue. One of the real hookup raunchy bars, but there was one called the Old Colony, which is almost like a club. I mean, you could pick up people there and all that, but you almost always knew somebody there, and you would go. I would often be going to the theater at night, and I'd go there afterward and have a beer and see some friends and go home. And one night there was this really terrific guy, and we started talking, and I thought, and I said, well, I live right around the corner. He said, let's go. And so we got there, and we started kissing and carrying on. At one point, he leaned me up against the wall and said, I think I'm falling in love with you, at which point the wall fell down. It was plaster, I mean, not the whole wall, but all the plaster, they obviously plastered over the old bricks and all that, and painted it all, and it just, when he went like that, the whole thing came down, and we were just covered in plaster. And I watched him as he fled out of the apartment and left. I never saw him again. I went to a party, and there was a very nice girl there. We talked, and she said, so what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to be an actor. She said, first lesson in show business, honey, get your foot in the door. There was a woman named Audrey Wood, who was the head of the agency, with her husband, Bill Liebling, who she called Liebling. I said, what do I call it? She said, that's German for darling. Anyway, so there was a big brouhaha in her office, and her secretary stormed out, and she looked over at me at the switchboard and said, young man, come into my life. She had all these fabulous clients, Tennessee Williams and William Inge and Carson McCullers and actors like Shirley Booth and Yul Brynner. I got to know Tennessee on the phone and the other clients, and she called me and she said, there's one thing I want you to do for me, if you will. And I said, what is that? She said, and when Tennessee goes around the country, she said, he meets people sometimes in bars and places like that. She said, and he doesn't want to give them his home number, so he says if they're ever in New York, call our number. So I don't want to talk to those people when they call. So if they say, is Tennessee Williams there? You say, no, this is his agency, how can I help you? And then they'll tell you. So one time this guy called, so he said, hi, my name is Brick. I met Tennessee in a bar in Memphis a couple of months ago, and he said if I ever got to New York, I'm here, and I should call him at this number. And I said, well, this is his agency. It's not his home. I don't know whether he's in New York or not, but give me your number. I'll find out, and I'll call you back. So I would call Tennessee. This one time, there were several times that this happened. And I said, Tennessee, there's a guy, because one time I started with Mr. Williams, he said, call me 10. So I said, 10, it's Gilbert at Liebling Wood. He said, hey, I said, this guy called me. You remember meeting a guy named Brick in a bar in Memphis a little while? He said, I don't know. I mean, he lived with a guy named Frank Merlo, his partner. He said, Frank, you remember a guy named Brick that we met in a bar in Memphis a little while ago? Yeah, you do? Oh, okay. Yeah, you can give him my number. And I spent 20 years at William Morris. And 12 years ago, I was hot August day, I was walking to the office. And I got about halfway there, and I thought, I don't want to do this anymore. And the rest of the friends in the office, I said, what am I talking about? Did I really? No, I don't really want. So I got there, I said, before I change my mind, I'm going right up to the executive office and saying, I want to be, and I said, I want to be out here by the end of the year. And they looked at me like I was crazy. I said, I want to be here for the next few months to get my clients all settled with new agents. I'm not going to walk out on them. Then I'm going. I'll leave at the end of December. And I did. And I've never regretted it. I had a good time. I had a 20-year run there. Obviously, a lot of activity, and a lot of people I cared about. And that was it. Then I retired. Sometimes I was allowing myself to be led for reasons I don't understand today.